Welcome to Wake Up Charlotte to Go. Larry, Sprinkle and Chris Mulcahy. This is live from the west coast of Florida. Hurricane Idalia impacting. We're not sure exactly what that is, but you can see the storm surge starting right there, Chris. Look at that. Pretty
and that's a good representation of what most beaches are going to be looking at. And we actually just saw a shot, we can't show you now because they switched to the reporter, that you could actually see the water coming up to the steps of some of the houses right along the water. Yeah. So we've already seen the crest of water, because whenever you have a hurricane like this, it lifts it up and it throws it towards the shoreline, and that's the storm surge. The storm surge, I think that we were just looking, already up to about 3 feet in some areas. So already dangerous situations, and it's about to make landfall.
Cedar Key, I read a report from there. They've already had a storm surge of about 5 feet.
Wow,
Cedar
okay.
Key, let's take a look and show you the big picture, the big view. This is such a dramatic hurricane. It had been a Category 4, now back down to Category 3. Doesn't matter. That's a powerful hurricane.
Splitting hairs, yeah.
And you can see starting to move. That will make landfall here probably while we're doing this, but it's moving now north-northeast at 18 miles per hour. Category 3, take a look at that right there. That is devastating damage. Devastating damage.
Yeah, and these are words that we don't use in everyday language, that, hey, that was devastating, that was catastrophic. Now, catastrophic, of course, is the tier up, but look where we're at. 125, we were at 130. Yeah. You're right on the cusp. Like, 5 miles per hour isn't going to make a huge difference at that point. You're still having gusts up to 155, 160, and then on top of that, the storm surge is high as 10 feet. And as Larry was mentioning, it's pretty much just minutes away from the official landfall. So we're going to be monitoring that from the National Hurricane Center. And real quick, the technical definition of landfall is the intersection of the surface center at the tropical cyclone with the coastline. That was very complicated, but the easier way to put it is they're always looking for the center of circulation. Yep. Usually you can see it pretty easy in a hurricane because it has the eye. Well, right now we had Idalia go into what's called the eye wall replacement cycle, so it's tough to see. But once that center of circulation is at least 50% past the shoreline, then it's going to be the official landfall.
It's not when it touches. A lot of people think it's just when the storm gets there. It's the eye wall that has to get there.
Yeah, right, 50%. So right now we are now in the process of landfall, but the official landfall has not been deemed yet, and might be outdated by the time that we're done here. You're watching this later on the day, hours, days from now. This is now the process that we're starting to see the worst roll into Florida, and we still don't know what the worst could be.
Absolutely. We'll take a look once again at this radar, how dramatic this is. A powerful Hurricane Idalia moving into areas. Now, this is the Big Bend of Florida. There is, the caveat is, this is not a highly populated area, but unfortunately there are people who live there.
Yes.
They live in the coastal communities, so there will be devastation there. And you can see it's just right now, just to the south, about 50 miles south of Tallahassee, Florida, that center of circulation, and tracking northeast. I couldn't really find any small towns right there at the center, but we'll kind of zoom in and show you what we're talking about, a little bit closer view right there. And Cedar Key is way down there on the extreme right-hand bottom side there. That's what we said, had some video earlier today from right there at Cedar Key. But you can see that eye is beginning to make contact with the land. And we can go to some of the video that we have right now to show you exactly what we're talking about. This is, we're not sure, this has to be pretty close to where we're talking about, maybe Cedar Key or somewhere like that. But you can see it's already, we'll kind of pan the camera around here. This is a live view. It could be the same photographer, but this is somewhere close to landfall right there. That storm surge moving in. You can see that's one of the reporters right there, Chris.
So what we were just looking at when we started this, and when did we start? Like 4 minutes ago? Yeah. It wasn't that bad. No. You're seeing now minute by minute that it's getting worse and worse, because it's always the edge of the eye wall that's usually the strongest. Wow. Yeah, you can really see the difference there. Notice the stop sign, how it was bent over from the water. Think about a stop sign when you're walking by. That's usually above you. So now I think it's almost that 5-6 foot range.
Yes.
Yeah, this easily, I think 10 feet is going to be obtained right through this area. That's a real bad image.
And they're saying it could be as much as 18 to 20 foot storm surge right there. So this is from the National Hurricane Center, Category 3 hurricane. It did become Category 4 for a while, but it doesn't matter. It's just enormous storm system and making landfall probably while we're on the air here, pretty close to that little community called Perry right there. And this is going to take a turn, and this is this afternoon about 2 o'clock. Wind still 100 miles an hour, pretty close to Valdosta, Georgia. And you know what's interesting about this? You know this, Chris, where Jacksonville is? They're on that right front side. They're going to see some strong storms and possibly tornadoes over there on that side.
It's called the dirty side of a hurricane, where it's whatever the direction the storm is headed, that's where the winds, since it is rotating counterclockwise, that allows for more wind shear. The stronger storms, as Larry was mentioning, stronger winds. And we mentioned at landfall that is not a very highly populated area, but Gainesville, Jacksonville, Valdosta, Brunswick, Savannah, all those areas are very highly populated. Because look at 2 p.m. Southern Georgia, you're still looking at a Category 2 hurricane, still a borderline tropical storm hurricane in Charleston by the overnight hours. So there is millions of people that are going to be impacted with this, just not where it's making landfall. So this is a major storm system. The only silver lining that we also have here, Larry, is at least it's moving pretty quickly.
Absolutely. That's good news for everybody. But unfortunately, it's going to be around for a while.
Yeah.
At 2 a.m. right there, almost hurricane force winds around Charleston, South Carolina. Then starts moving more out of the Atlantic Ocean, pretty close to Wilmington. So landfall in Florida, and the brunt of the storm will definitely affect the coast of Georgia, South Carolina, and North Carolina, then out in the Atlantic Ocean by, say, 2 o'clock on Friday afternoon. It's got to be...
We're so close.
At the moment, we don't get really an update from the National Hurricane Center until a little bit later, but we can almost say landfall, unless you can see it right there.
I'm following, so I follow them on Twitter, X, whatever we're calling it nowadays, and what's really good is the National Hurricane Center will be the first one to pull the trigger that they will send out something saying, hey, landfall is official, and that still has not come down. The last update they had was at 7 a.m., just talking about how this is a catastrophic storm. At 7 a.m., it was technically a Category 3, and you can go ahead and call this a catastrophic storm, because it's close enough. 125 mile per hour sustained winds, moving north-northeast at 18 miles per hour. And when I said the good news about it moving quickly, that means it's just going to limit some of the flooding. You still have extreme storm surge. You're still going to have a lot of wind damage. A lot of trees are going to be down. Thousands of trees will be down across northern Florida, southern Georgia.
That's a very big, it's a forest area.
Very big forest area,
right
yeah.
there.
And also showing some other information, I want to show you this. We were mentioning this yesterday. The Big Bend area doesn't have a lot of major hurricanes make landfall. The closest one in that neck of the woods, 1935, and they weren't even naming it at that point.
Yeah.
It was just Storm 3.
Right.
And here is what we've been watching. It was on Sunday that we went from a tropical depression to a tropical storm. And we said during this time yesterday, it's now starting its process of rapid intensification. Yesterday, at this time, it was 80 miles per hour. Then the afternoon, 105. Then it went up to 130, now 125. Look at how quickly.
It hit 130 this morning.
Yeah, so it did peak as a Category 4. And whenever you see a document from a hurricane, it's always going to go to its peak. So regardless, you can't take that away, even if it makes landfall as a Category 3, which is looking likely they might adjust it. This is still a Category 4 storm, major hurricane, one of the strongest, and that means this is the 4th year in a row that we've had a major hurricane make landfall in the United States. And Larry, we say this every season. It takes just one, and right now, Idalia is that one.
And let's go back and show the radar once again, because as we were talking, I have a feeling that it's made landfall just, unofficially. You can see right there the eye wall right there on top of that section in the Big Bend area of Florida. Not populated, but unfortunately, I think I read in that area right there about 20,000 people. But that's hopefully they did evacuate. Heard some reports. Some said they were going to stay. And we'll expand the view, show you the monster storm, how much territory it covers, all the way from the Big Bend towards Jacksonville, the southern part of Georgia and Alabama, all the way up to the Charleston area, getting some storms. Now, let's talk about the rainfall. If you look at this graphic right here, these are all estimated, Doppler estimates. In the mountains, insignificant, foothills, almost nothing. Charlotte, uptown, maybe about an inch. Then you go south of here, close to 2 inches south of here. The farther east and southeast you go, the more rain you get. That's why we do have a flood advisory in effect, because some of our area could get a significant amount of rainfall, well over 2 inches of rain from the effects of Hurricane Idalia. Now, let's talk about the impact. It's, I think, really mainly heavy rain. Not that we couldn't get some wind gusting up to maybe 30 miles an hour, but I think the main impact for us will be the amount of rain that we could get.
The biggest thing is a lot of you might be heading to the beach this weekend too. Like, say you were going to go earlier, just wait for the storm to clear. It's going to be clear. I actually had somebody ask me yesterday. I was like, hey, I was thinking about leaving to Myrtle Beach tonight or Thursday morning. That's not a good idea. No. You're still looking at some very strong winds, because what's happening on the South Carolina coast, North Carolina coast, is much different than what we have here in Charlotte. We're just far enough away. Yeah, you're still going to have some rain. So we're lucky here in Charlotte, because there were initial estimates this could have continued north, and we would have had a much bigger impact with that. And what's interesting about the path, Larry, is we might be saying this name for a while because it goes back out in the Atlantic and just kind of sits and churns. And
we'll talk about it. We'll show you exactly what we're talking about. There it is right there. Probably made landfall while we're talking about this.
Yeah, still not official by the National Hurricane Center, but we're in the process right there. We're minutes away right now from landfall.
As a Category 3 hurricane, and takes that track across the northern part of Florida, South Georgia, then heads over towards the coastal communities of Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, then heads out in the Atlantic Ocean and just churns around out there in the Atlantic, maybe for days. I mean, I would say that chances are slim that it does come back towards the East Coast. It has happened in the past, but it is going to be out there. There's nothing to kick it out farther in the Atlantic Ocean, no big frontal boundaries or anything like that. So this could be interesting to watch it over the next week or so.
And this is unprecedented, because usually it'll die out. Remnants might form again. I think it was Gene, I'm trying to jog my memory, that did this, kind of went back out, circled around, then it came right back to the United States. But the fact that Idalia is going to do so much damage, and we can't just forget the name, even though right now this is heading towards a potential of retirement. But yeah, just wow, a monster storm. And from when we were talking yesterday, Larry, it didn't really have its eye wall. It was kind of clunky and lumpy. Really turned into a well-defined storm. If this was moving, I would say even 5 miles per hour slower, we could be talking about a strong Category 4. So the speed has helped out, but man, everything's hitting the fan right now.
Yeah, it's interesting. One last little factoid about this. This storm system did not originate off the coast of Africa, did not originate in the Caribbean or the Gulf of Mexico. It actually started in the Pacific Ocean and moved across land towards the Yucatan Peninsula.
Whoa!
That's where the original storm was, in the Pacific Ocean. Isn't that crazy?
That just shows that you just need a piece of energy.
Yes.
And that's usually where you get these waves, and not for that exact path. But we were mentioning also yesterday that this kind of reminded me of Michael. That Michael back in 2018, it was right in there, in between Mexico, Central America, and Cuba, right down there. And then all of a sudden, once it started going north, drinking that warm water, it just slingshot right in there. Now, not the same path, but
I think we got some more pictures here.
Oh, we do? Okay.
This is that same area. We don't know the exact location of this, but it is in that area along that big bend of Florida, and you can see the amount of storm surge already. Well, we're going to be here. We'll be throughout the day.
Real quick, Larry, we can officially say we can end this show 41 seconds ago at the time of this recording. The National Hurricane Center at 7:45 update. Extremely dangerous Category 3 hurricane makes landfall in the Florida Big Bend. Maximum sustained winds estimated to be 125. Catastrophic storm surge, damaging winds. So we can say that the landfall is official to end the show.
Probably about the time we mentioned it is when it happens.
And it takes a few minutes. So yeah, it was right at that point. So it looks like 7:45, the official landfall. It just says Big Bend area because you don't have a highly populated area for pinpoint a city. So Idalia has now made landfall. Now we will keep you updated here on WCNC online and on air as it works its way northeast toward the Carolinas.
And the very latest coming up at 11:30 on midday, and more from Brad Panovich this afternoon. Have a great day.